Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the collective, where I have arranged the set as in my living room. Again, I am Del Salvador, and this is a lot of words, 13 in fact. This is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, ice, death, planets, lungs, mushrooms, and lava. The new album from Australian band. It's hard to say what at this point because they are probably the most prolific band at this point in time, with only 10 years doing stuff and things, and they got 20 something albums. This being one of three this month, and 2017 releasing five for the whole year. Like, quite a lot of stuff, and along with every album having its own unique concept or gimmick or just theme or something. There's a lot of different things they're doing. They'll go from jazz fusion to thrash metal to psychedelic rock to pop to hip hop. It's kind of all over the place, but kind of like Tool. They still got their own stuff, just like Tool or Korn. Bands with their own sound. They also got their own sound going on. And like going back to Tool, Tool can do something like Fear Inoculum, which is more meditative, and something like Enema, which is a lot more raw. It still sounds like Tool. Same thing with King Gizzard. They can do most genres and still sound like them. And that's, I don't want to say the issue, but like, with a band as prolific as this, but with as many sound changes as they have, not many people are gonna like every single album. That also means if you don't like one album, there's a lot more you can try out. Like 20, in fact, at this point in time. Soon to be a lot more, hopefully. And this is one of the ones that I personally do not exactly vibe with. And that's not to say it's bad, it's just this one clearly is a lot more jazz focused. And while I'm trying to get into jazz, I'm not really well versed in a lot of jazz. And I feel like if you understood a lot more jazz, you'd get a lot more enjoyment out of this album because it seems very jam bandy, kind of like the Dave Matthews Band or even Grateful Dead. It has that same kind of thing where you have a lot of long songs, like 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 13 minutes, 9 minutes. Lots of long songs. None of them are under 5 minutes. In fact, the shortest one is a little under 7, and the longest one is a little over 13. And within all those songs, it's very jammy. Like, every song kind of has its own vibe, but it's kind of the same thing for the whole song. Not to say there's no changes or switch ups, or even time signature changes. It's more so the mood doesn't exactly shift that much. And with a lot of their other work, like tracks like The River, tracks like The Dripping Tap, what usually happens is they start somewhere, and they end somewhere, they go to somewhere completely different, then somewhere completely different again, and they kind of change. Or the song kind of stays in one pocket, but it's more structured and it's more like, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 3 minutes. And with this, with jam bandy like stuff, where it's not structured, it's really hard to listen to. If you're the one playing it, probably it's great, but at some points a little bit self-indulgent, a little bit, because when I want to go listen to this, right? If you don't like the general sound they're going for on a track, and that track is 10 minutes and it's not really changing, they can do a lot of cool stuff, but it all kind of blends and molds and kind of melts to the same kind of thing. Well, rather if you like the sound on a specific track, you're gonna notice every little thing that's happening, and that's just how that is. And there are some good tracks in here for sure. The first track, Mycelium, very good, very nice, very old school sounding. I don't have the word for it. I couldn't think of it off the top of my head, but if you play it within the first line, just that the first couple seconds, you immediately get it. It's a very specific thing they're going for. The next track, Ice 5, it's okay. It's all the tracks are kind of jam bandy, right? So it really depends on the person on who's gonna like what track. If you like a lot of jazz, that I'm not, because I'm trying to get into jazz, right? I'm not that familiar with it, but if you are familiar with jazz, you probably get a lot more out of this album than I have, because you have something to relate it to and kind of compare it to. And they're probably doing a lot of cool things, but for someone like me, it's kind of flying past me. I'm just gone. So I have to go on sound alone, which is fine, because that's what I usually do with music, is just how does it sound. You can be doing as many complex things as you want, but at the end of the day, can you make a good sounding song? And some of these, I can say for sure. Mycelium is great. Iron Lung, really great. The intro to Lava's pretty cool for the first minute and a half out of 7, but for me, it's kind of it. And with an album, again, like this, again, very jam bandy, if they're all kind of going for the same kind of thing, I'd say Mycelium, Iron Lung, and the last track, which I honestly can't pronounce, Glia's 710, we'll say, they're probably the most diverse, but the rest of them are all kind of very similar. And when it comes to those other tracks, if you have a bunch of songs that are the exact same, or at least very close to, you're gonna just either pick one of them or just kind of pick any one of the hat and go, sure, that one. There's not really incentive to choose one over the other. So for me, again, Mycelium, Iron Lung are really good. The rest is kind of like, it's cool, they're doing cool things, but that's about it. Like, and this is definitely a me thing. It's not a thing that's their fault, because jazz and that kind of very similar things, those kind of similar genres, are very much embedded in their sound. Every album seems to have some semblance of jazz somewhere. So it's very necessary in their exploring of their sound and just other sounds to just, do this. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to have a band like Gizzard, you're going to experiment with different genres, you're going to need to go through different genres. And especially, if you have a genre that's pretty much the basis of your sound, you might want to strip it back and just do that for an album. And I think that's what this is. I don't think the quality's bad, it's just a me thing. This is also, like I said before, the first album of 3 this month. The next one coming out, I'm pretty sure, in 2 days. So, I'm hoping I'll like the other 2 more, or just the same level, and honestly, cool. But they seem to be on a pretty unbreakable streak, pretty close to all their albums, even before this, were considered really, really good. They don't release a lot of bad stuff, or at least generally considered bad stuff. It's only a problem of, do you like it personally or not, between album to album. This is one of those ones that I personally do not like, but if you like jazz, and if you like fusion, and if you like psychedelic rock, you will probably love this. It's really good. Especially if you like jam bandy stuff, like Grateful Dead or Dave Matthews Band. If you like any of those kinds of things, it's kind of that in a blender. You got some jam bandy stuff, very freeform. You got a lot of just jazz-like things, a lot of nice organs and flutes, a lot of cool stuff. Something I didn't mention, because I talked about Mycelium a little bit. I talked about Mycelium already. Iron Lung, actually blew me away a little bit because, again, I've not listened to a lot of King Gizzard, but I listened to enough to know that Stu's vocals, pretty sure it's Stu, on this track are really good. And even if it's the other guy that does vocals from time to time, still phenomenal. I'd say even more so. Because I didn't really know they could sing this high. And that's not saying that they haven't before. Maybe they have, again, I haven't listened to everything, but it's not that it's high, it's that it doesn't sound like either of them. It sounds like a different person. But I'm pretty sure it's Stu. I'm pretty sure. And Stu being, the main brain of this entire project, at least mostly, it's pretty cool to see from him. It's pretty cool. I hope they continue on with their stuff. Again, they got 2 more albums this month. I'm looking forward to them. And that's probably about it. Nothing much I can say. So, yeah. Have a good one.